Welcome to the next installment in AlertFind's webinar series. Today we are doing Jumpstart Your Emergency Alert Library, Expert Strategies to Get You Started. You can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtags Emergency Notification System and AF Webinar, and we're going to be live tweeting today's event at AlertFindCom. Today's hosts are me. I am Danielle Ricci, the Vice President of Marketing for AlertFind, and Chase Russell, our Director of Operations. Hey, Chase.
Hey, everybody.
Chase is an expert in the AlertFind system, and so he's going to be showing you how some of these alerting strategies that we're going to talk about look in the back end of an emergency notification system. Today's webinar is going to take a slightly different format. Usually we invite an outside expert in a field related to emergency preparedness to come in and share their knowledge. And today we're going to be synthesizing information from many experts that we've talked to this year with our own in-house knowledge of setting up and deploying a successful emergency communication strategy. And we're going to hit the key points of how to use alerting best practices to get more from your ENS, how to create groups so you can better target your messages, how to write alerts for your most common organizational risks, how to create a testing plan for your emergency alerts, and how to integrate alerts into your organization's exercises. So when we talk to prospects, they tend to rely on a few ad hoc ways of notifying their employees about emergencies. They tend to involve call trees or manual spreadsheets of employee contact information, or a PA system, or email only, or my favorite, which is shouting down the hall. Our sales team actually hears this all the time. Or also common, no way to communicate or no process to communicate in an emergency. And there are a lot of ways that you can organize your existing communication infrastructure to send emergency alerts, but they tend to rely on a series of manual processes which require a lot of time and coordination on the part of the person tasked with enacting the emergency preparedness plan. So when we look at these notification options, we see several key risks. They include incomplete information, no way to contact people in multiple channels, inefficiencies, or they waste time in emergencies trying to call, text, or notify people individually. And that time delay can lead to worse injuries or deaths and a greater number of people hurt or killed by an emergency situation. Also, there's no easy way for people to share information or confirm that they've received information. And generally, it's time consuming to try and maintain a system, and that takes ongoing campaigns to try and get employees to add their information in. So when you think about your office, what are the odds that everyone is sitting at their desks? We take meetings on other floors, we travel, we work from home, we visit clients, we go out for lunch, and we pretty much ignore our emails. Personally, I've got about 1,000 unread emails in my inbox. So as part of your emergency planning, you need to implement a strategy that will account for any emergency situation that might occur at any time of day, and one that's realistic about how people work. So an email-only strategy is kind of good for the center bit of this picture that's on the screen right now. Everyone is sitting at their desks. They have access to their phone and their computer. Their email is right in front of them. But it's not good for the situations on the edges. So somebody is commuting into work, or somebody is between floors, or leaving for lunch. You also need a strategy that will let you keep tabs on the safety and whereabouts of everyone who might be affected, so you can know who and where to send help to and who is thankfully out of harm's way. So many prospects are motivated to seek out a different solution when these other methods don't work. So when considering an emergency notification system, you need to know what features and benefits it offers and how it will work for your organization. So if you're thinking about an emergency notification system, it should allow you to plan for all of your organization's risks and most likely emergency situations, have the ability to reach all employees immediately on multiple channels, keep your database up to date with automatic integrations, get status updates in real time, easily set up hotlines and conference bridges, target specific areas with geofencing, have global coverage, rapidly send notifications with a mobile app, use pre-written alerts to optimize crisis communication, also be highly secure. So when you're thinking about how you're storing and using the personal contact information for your employees, it's really important that you comply with high security regulations. So it should be GDPR ready and probably SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliant. And also customer service. Customer service is super important for systems like this, which tend not to be used that often. So when you go into them after a couple months of just sort of, owning them and updating them, but not sending out alerts, you may run into problems at the last minute where you forget where something is. And so you need to have people on call who can help you through an emergency situation like that. So in doing this webinar series, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of emergency preparedness experts, and no matter their area of expertise, whether it's wildfires or hurricanes or active shooter preparedness, everyone comes back to the importance of having a plan. And one of the most important aspects of an emergency notification system is that it lets you write and save an emergency alert template library. So as you're thinking through your organization's response to an emergency situation, part of that plan will be how you want your staff to respond. So you can send emails about your plan ahead of time. You might even host a live training, but in the thick of an emergency, it's really important that you can deliver clear and concise instructions about the nature of the threat and exactly how to respond directly to the people who are affected. So we're going to dig more into the best practices for building an alerting library and emergency communication strategy a little bit later in the webinar. So when it comes to setting up an ENS, I'm going to bring Chase in to show you how it actually looks on the back end. Hey, Chase.
Hey, everybody.
So the most important thing, no matter what your emergency communication protocol is to start from the most accurate source of employee information. For most companies, that's an HR system. So the goal here is that you want to be able to contact your employees no matter where they are. So you need to start with a database that goes beyond work email and desk phone to include communication channels that will reach employees who aren't at their desks. So you start with a database that exists in your HR system. And in the case of AlertFind, the first step is to create an API that can port that data over to the emergency contact database and to keep it up to date as the makeup of your workforce changes. If you don't have an HR system, the first step for you might be uploading that information as a CSV file.
Great. So starting very simply, when you import your employees' contact information into a system like AlertFind, into an emergency notification system, you're going to see something like this, which is very simply just a list of all of your what we call users, which will probably be your employees. And as Danielle mentioned, this is you want to import your most accurate source of information. We find that there's probably going to be lots of gaps in that. And that's okay. That's kind of what we expect as a starting point. I'm looking at a pretty simple view here where we're looking at the role and the description, if there is a description like a job title of the individual. Email addresses is usually kind of the default bare minimum that we would expect to have in your database. But as you'll see, if I click into one of these users, I'll click into myself, there's a whole range of contact information that you could possibly have for an individual. And what Danielle's going to get into in a second is how do we make sure we have the right pieces of information and those pieces of information are accurate. But the very first step is just making sure you're either connecting to a database and pulling that information in so that it exists in your alerting system, or if you don't, you also have the option to just upload via CSV file as often as you need to.
So the next step is to pull in any crucial information that you're missing from any of those records. The most important piece of contact information that many companies that adopt a solution like ours is a cell phone number. In a crisis situation, like an active shooter, even in which the most critical actions that your staff can take are in the first 3 minutes of the emergency, sending a text message is very likely to be seen most quickly. In the event of an office closure, you're more likely to reach employees before the start of their commutes on a cell phone. And in any natural disaster that puts a strain on communication infrastructure, like earthquakes or wildfires, text messages are really lightweight alerts that have the best chance of getting through. So with AlertFind, we identify what information is missing and get that into the contact database with Smart Contact.
Okay, so Smart Contact is one of the pieces of AlertFind that we're most excited about, just because what we constantly find when we talk to people dealing with real world emergencies is that you can have a great notification system, but like Danielle mentioned, if you're not reaching people in the way that they need to be reached and are most accessible in the event of emergency, that literally could mean the difference between safety and not being safe, right? So what we do with Smart Contact is we allow you to configure this so that it's going to detect missing pieces of information in your database and actually go out and make sure that those missing pieces get filled in automatically. And I'm talking a little bit about how the system does that. But essentially all you're doing again is you've uploaded your employee information into AlertFind, and then Smart Contact is going to go scan your database and highlight wherever there's missing information. Now, what you get to do on the configuration page that I'm on now is you first get to identify which piece of information you want Smart Contact to go collect for you. Because we hear day in and day out from people running emergency preparedness programs that it can be a huge, laborious task, maybe done once a quarter or maybe just once a year, to go get accurate contact information for everyone. So the point of Smart Contact is to try to do that for you. So you can see on this page what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I want to target personal cell phone numbers because we want to make sure that we get to 100% accuracy, that we have everyone's personal cell phone numbers. Then what we're going to do is we can actually configure this automated email sequence, if you will, where at each stage we can indicate what we want the message to say that people are receiving. This is where you want to put your key messaging around why people should be providing information. Why do we have this emergency preparedness program? Why should they care? How are you using their information? All those things that people will want to know, you can put right in this message and you can edit that at any point. At each stage, you can also indicate the frequency of when these emails go out. So you're essentially setting up this smart automated drip campaign to go reach all of your employees and make sure that we get accurate cell phone number in the system. So once you've configured this to your liking, you go ahead and you turn Smart Contact on, and then you are essentially done. Smart Contact will continuously monitor the database and keep going until it gets accurate contact information for all of your employees. And after you've done this step, you can then look at what Smart Contact is producing in real time. So this is an example of the back-end dashboard where you can see, if I focus on this top right graph here, where you started in terms of personal cell phone number accuracy, since that's what we were targeting in this example, and how much that accuracy has increased since turning Smart Contact on, obviously with the goal of getting to 100%. You can also look into what stage the various people in your organization are at to see how far down this automated drip campaign have they gotten, and you can compare that to how much information that you've collected today. The whole point of this, and I think Danielle will talk later about how we also augment this with actual check-ins with you on the health of your database, but the whole point is to get to a place where you're confident that when you hit the send button, it's going to get to 100% of your people, and also it's going to get to 100% of your people on the device that matters most, which what we find, what the experts say, is the personal cell phone number. So that's where we really recommend you focus on that cell phone number, because in this day and age, we are glued to our screens, and that's what's going to matter.
Thanks, Chase. So once you have contact information for all of your staff, you're ready to start thinking about the different ways that you'll want to communicate with groups within them. So the first main distinction that you want to make is between administrators, those who can send messages, and staff who will be only on the receiving end of your messages. It's a good idea to designate multiple administrators for your system so that the main person tasked with emergency communication, if they're out or unreachable, they have a backup who can step in. Some of our clients also choose to delegate admin privileges to certain members certain staff members for only a segment of the database. So for instance, they might choose somebody who can send alerts only to people in the New York office location, but not to everyone at every location. Other groups that you should consider setting up are, if your company has multiple locations, predefine a group for each location. If you're using your emergency notification system for IT outages, you're going to want to create groups for the IT resources who can fix the problem, executive stakeholders who need to be kept in the loop, and general staff who might be impacted by the problem. Also, emergency captains. So if you have people within your organization who are tasked with enacting certain parts of the emergency preparedness plan, you'll want to alert them differently than you're alerting the general staff. Also, things like staff who have CPR training. So if you have people in your organization who have special response skills, you can create groups for them so that you can notify just those people in an emergency, so that the person who can actually respond will be within that group. Also, the executive leadership team, who might want more real-time information than the general population about what's going on with an emergency and how it's being handled. Another big benefit of setting up groups and thinking carefully about who's receiving your messages is that you're going to combat alert fatigue. So this is a big problem, that if you're sending way too many alerts to everybody, they're going to start ignoring them and not see the most important alerts. So it's extremely dangerous, obviously, if you've bombarded people with every small little IT outage, that they're gonna stop checking, they're gonna stop paying attention to alerts. And when you have something that's actually life-threatening, or something where you need people to move quickly, they're not going to respond as fast. Okay, Chase, I'm going to flip it over to you to show us how to make and save a group within your database.
Okay, so there's actually multiple ways that you can make a group. We'll start with the simplest, because usually in situations like this, we find that our customers and emergency preparedness managers in general, they usually are just trying to move fast, right? So let's say you're setting this up, you want to get it built fast. Literally all that you have to do is go to broadcast groups, say I want to create a new group. Let's title it, let's use Danielle's example, so let's title it the New York office. Let's say we want to group everyone who's at the New York office together. We could save that. Then we can manage the membership. So let's say that Aaron, Alex, and myself are all in the New York office. I would literally just drag and drop us in there, and we are now in the New York office group. So anytime that you are sending out a message and you want to reference just these people, you would just start typing in the name of the group, New York office, and that group would pop up, so you know that you're only sending to those people. So as you can see, that it's extremely fast to create a group. However, there are some more sophisticated ways to create group if it's useful for your situation. So I could also create what we call an escalation group. I won't go into it in detail because I don't want to take too much of Danielle's time on feature stuff, but essentially an escalation group is where you build logic into the group. Let's say within the New York office, we first want to notify just the CEO, and then if he doesn't respond within 5 minutes, we want to notify his direct reports, and on and on. I could actually build that logic into the actual group, so whenever I send to that group, it will follow that logic. And then lastly, smart groups is a way to provide a shortcut if I'm creating a group that can reference any field that you have in your database. So if you remember that description field in our database, you can look at, let's say, who has a certain title in the database and automatically include them in a group. So if let's say you have a new hire that you want to make sure you include, you could reference that as logic in the smart group. So long story short, creating groups is really simple, but you can become more sophisticated as you create groups if that is necessary in the situation. And with that, I'll flip back to you, Danielle.
Okay, so next you want to start building out your alerting library. You can create alerts for every possible situation, but you want to identify your most likely business risks first. To do this, look at your organization's risk assessment. If you don't have one, we actually have a great webinar about this with Bob Clark. A business continuity expert, Bob does a great job of helping businesses think through their risks and then prioritize the ones which are most likely to occur and which ones will do the most damage. So here are a few common risks to consider. They may vary by your geography and the size of your organization, but many of our clients start with developing alerting templates for active shooter events and workplace violence. Natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, and winter weather. Facilities-related issues like power outages, building closures, chemical spills, things like that. IT alerting, so cyber attacks, data breaches, or system failures. Terrorism and pandemics. So pandemics, kind of wide-scale things, or just things like the flu or other illnesses that are having a big impact on your office. So what are some examples of the types of issues to consider when building out your alerting library? Here are a few incidents that an ENS can help resolve faster that could hit any organization regardless of your size or geography. So if you start with your IT infrastructure, if your email goes down and you want to send an outage notification, but it's usually done through email, you can use your ENS to reach people on other channels and keep them up to date about the outage. If you have a facilities issue, so your building has a functional problem like a water main break or something with the power or a chemical spill or a loss of heat within the building, you can immediately alert everyone who's affected within that building. Or cybersecurity, there's a data breach that needs people's immediate attention, so you can reach them on systems that are off network. So if you're reaching people on personal cell phones, you're not having to go through email, which may be, involved in the cyber attack. So once you have your prioritized list of risks, you can start drafting an alerting template for your top risks. You want to think about audience, message, and mode. Those are the three main things that you need to think about when you're composing your messages. So audience is, who is this going to? With an emergency notification system that has GPS check-ins, you can be really specific about the geographies that you're alerting, or you can alert people based on the groups and the way that Chase showed you earlier. The message is, what should the alert say? Your messages should protect people and they should be easy to comprehend. So you want to make sure that they're short, easy to understand, free of jargon. And then mode is, what channel are you going to use? So in the example that we just talked about, where the email is down, obviously you need to think about other modes of communication. And depending on whether the emergency that you're preparing for will impact your infrastructure in some way, you need to think about channels that will be less affected, or the immediacy of something. So if it's a situation that requires an immediate response, text is most important. In other situations, you might email people and then use an escalation that if they don't respond in 5 minutes, that you give them a phone call. So the three questions that you need to answer when you are composing alerts are, what is the hazard, where is the hazard located, and what protective actions do you want people to take in response to that hazard? So there's an example here on the side of the screen. Chemical spilled by the north side buildings, Quad Road is closed, use Lake Drive to access buildings 103 and 104. It's clear and concise, you know exactly what's going on, there's not extraneous information. When alerting your emergency management team, you want to identify yourself, so be clear that the alert is coming from an official source. Here's a good example. This is the company, your company name, Emergency Management Department. We have a facilities or security or cyber or IT related situation that requires your attention. Please press 1 to dial into the conference call. It's also super important to stay calm and avoid panic, and then notify the broader audience using your emergency notification system. For natural disasters like hurricanes, wildfires, and winter storms, you can also include links to sites like FEMA that contain preparedness tips. This resource is always relevant and gives employees additional ways to protect themselves and their families. So now I'm going to flip it over to Chase, and we're going to actually write some alerts and then save them to the alerting library.
So let's start by clicking on the compose option here. One thing I want to highlight right off the bat is this step of kind of creating a template. Don't think of this as something that you would want to be doing in the event of an actual emergency. This is something you want to be doing, obviously, in advance of emergency. And after I build this template, we'll show you what it looks like to access it quickly from the actual alert console. And that's kind of more what you should visualize of what's going on in the event of an actual emergency. So let's use the example of the New York office storm closure. So probably what I would want to do from a template perspective in a situation like that is create a template for a snowstorm. So we'll keep this really simple. Let's say that we just want to say alert finds, well, let's not even keep it to the New York office because we're going to make this a little bit more generalizable. So let's say your office, because we're going to target the right audience. Your office will be closed today due to snow. Please stay off the roads and work from home today. That's essentially all I would need to do here since I want to create a template, right? I could theoretically send from here, but that's not best practice. Best practice is create a template that you could use in multiple situations. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I can choose to actually save this as a notification template that's going to go on the alert console. And as I do that, there's a number of options that I can choose from here. Probably the most relevant for when you are going to be using this is what icon you see here. So if you want to quickly find this message, let's find a relevant icon. So let's use the winter storm icon. We're going to call it snowstorm, and everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and save this and close, and then let's go to the alert console and see what it looks like. All right, now we are on our console, and you can see the snowstorm template that we created is right here. So let's say that the snowstorm is occurring months ago when I got a system up and running. I already had this in place, so all I have to do is click that snowstorm, and I now have the ability to send this notification out from this simple view. You'll see that from here I can choose which group I'm sending this to or which individual I can send it to. So if you remember, we built a New York office group. I could reference that right here to send. Another way that I could grab the right people without even having a group, let's say I forgot to create my group or I didn't create groups in the correct way, so there's not a fast way to group the people that I want to message. Well, this is a snowstorm is something that's impacted by geography. So I can actually do what we call geofencing, where I could go to, I'm in Austin right now, so it's not relevant to the New York example, but I could actually go to the relevant location and actually just draw a shape around the affected region, whatever shape I want, however many sides I want. And as long as I connect it, what it's going to do is grab whatever users are in that location. You can see in the bottom right, there are 2 users and 1 site in that location. So even if I didn't have my New York group in there, I could just draw the shape and grab all those people, click done. And now again, I have the ability to send this notification immediately. So again, all the work of building the template should be done up front in a system like this. So day of, you're literally just clicking on the template and you can send it. Hopefully you have the group configured. Even if you don't have the group configured, another option to quickly grab the right people is geofencing.
Thanks, Chase. So in addition to pre-scripting your alerts, there are other ways that you can speed up your response time using an emergency notification system. You can use your ENS to set up conference lines and hotlines. This makes it easy for your emergency response team to quickly join a call so that you can start responding to an emergency in real time, that you've gathered all the key stakeholders together and they can enact their plan. So sending out this information by multiple channels means that you can reach all of your key resources and you're not stuck waiting on a critical resource that you can't reach via email or phone, which is going to dramatically speed up your response time. So I'm going to flip it back over to Chase, and he's going to show you how to send an alert that includes an invitation to join a conference bridge.
All right, if we come back into our option here to compose a message, one thing that's really handy is that we can choose from different types of templates. And you'll see that one of the templates here is conference call. And what this is going to do, it's going to pre-configure some options here. So there's going to be a press 1 option when someone has received the message and is joining the call. And we're going to actually, I'll go into this in a second, but provide them the option to actually just go straight into the call from receiving that message, or to say that they cannot attend the call. So the idea here is exactly like we were composing a message or building a template before, we could do the exact same thing here. Let's say it has to do with snow closure. I won't go ahead and type a message, but what I'll show you is that you can edit this right here to put in all the information about the conference bridge. So all you would need to do is put in the relevant phone number here. So I'm just gonna put in a fake phone number. And then the meeting ID. And then from here, all that a user would need to do is press the right button and they would be automatically added to that call. I can then save this as a template. So just like we talked about before, this could become a template in that alert console so that all I have to do is pull that up and send it. Now everyone who receives this message is going to have these options, right? Press 1 to join the call, press 2 if you cannot join the call. And literally people, as they receive that message, can come straight into a call to triage the situation.
Thanks, Chase. So your ENS also plays a vital role in getting critical information from your employees during an emergency. Using features like read receipts, surveys, and incoming messages, you can find out if your employees need help. So take an active shooter event. Employees can use an ENS to let law enforcement know where the active shooter is, how many people are in a specific area, and if anyone has been injured or killed. So this firsthand information can dramatically improve law enforcement's ability to locate and stop an active shooter. In the event of an earthquake or hurricane, employees can use an ENS to send messages about their location, the status of their homes, their ability to get to work, and if they need medical care. And companies can then send first responder supplies or other things that will help employees in their home. And it also helps you collect all of this information in a single dashboard and then lets you communicate just within certain groups. So anyone who has marked themselves as safe or not affected by a disaster, you can leave them off of subsequent communications and just communicate directly with the people who are closest to the event. So I'm going to flip it back over to Chase to show you what it looks like when these responses for polls come in.
All right, so back in our compose mode here, what we can do is just like I showed you, how we can choose the conference call option. You also have an option for polls or surveys. When you click that, it's going to default to a yes or no, but you can configure as many options as you need here, and you can title them as you need so that anyone who receives a message can respond and tell you exactly what their situation is. So one thing we see a lot is people indicating maybe if they're safe or they're not. So if I wanted to edit this and call this one safe and the other one need help, I could do that. And like I said, I could also add multiple options. So very easy to configure the number of options that you want. And all that users have to do is select the right option when they receive the message on whatever device they're on to log that response. So then if you want to view what responses have been logged and communicate with individuals accordingly, you would just go to the sent notifications. So I'll find an example with a decent number of responses so that I can show you what it looks like. Here's a good example. So this is a hurricane landfall example. And you can see that 4 out of the 10 individuals indicated they're safe, but 6 out of the 10 have not even responded. So I haven't had any people say they need help, but I have a number of people who have not responded, which is concerning. what I can do is click straight into these individuals. So let's say I want to understand who they are and what happened, or maybe there was an error reaching them. That's all available immediately. But what I can also do from this page is just immediately compose a follow-up. So now, right from this page, I'm only communicating with the people that have not responded yet. And I can say whatever I need to say just to those people, and it's just including them. And that can obviously go on until you've fully triaged the situation, or you know that all of your employees are safe.
Thank you, Chase. So the next step is really key to getting the full benefit of your ENS. You've built out your system, but you need to get full buy-in from your employees. And promoting this engagement should be a key focus of your emergency preparedness plan. So how do you build that engagement? You start by telling your employees about the new ENS and let them know what it is and how it benefits them directly. So we suggest sending an email something like the one on the screen. We're implementing a new emergency notification system. In the event of an emergency, it sends out alerts to all employees via email, text, call, and page. The system helps us protect all employees by giving them immediate notification of an emergency as well as any recommended actions. Over the next few months, we'll be sending out test alerts to all of our employees to get them familiar with the system. We'll be using the emergency notification system as part of our emergency preparedness training. We're asking all employees to download the mobile app on their phones in order to receive alerts. Go to this link and follow the instructions. It only takes a few minutes to complete the download. Thanks for your participation in our emergency preparedness program. So yours might be a little bit different, but the key is to let them know that the system is in place. Let them know that it will be used in your tests, and then what actions that you'd like them to take next. Once your employees have been notified that you're going to be that you've started working with an emergency notification system, start incorporating test alerts into your emergency preparedness exercises. So your goal is to get employees comfortable receiving and responding to alerts. You don't want to send out your first alert in an actual emergency. So build awareness by using the ENS to send out alert for your next training exercises. Here are a few examples that we recommend. So if you're planning an active shooter training event, send out test alerts that tell employees to seek an interior shelter or leave the building if possible. If you're planning a fire drill, use the ENS to initiate the fire drill and declare when it's safe to return to the building. And as part of your training, have employees send messages, reply to surveys, etc., to build their knowledge and confidence with the system. And a key piece of this is to make sure that people understand that it's part of training. You don't want to give people the sense that an actual emergency is happening. So all of your training messages should be super clear that that this is a test of the system and a training exercise. Once you've used your emergency notification system to send out test alerts, gather feedback about them from your employees and use this as an opportunity to see what questions employees have. So learn more about what worked for them, what confused them, so that you can continue to educate them and get better at your emergency communication strategy. Your goal should be to have all of your employees comfortable with receiving alerts and then sending the replies. And continue to use your alerting system as part of your emergency preparedness training. Just like other training, you want to keep your employees' knowledge of your ENS fresh in their minds. That way, when an emergency occurs, they're able to react instinctively and better protect themselves in the organization. So with that, we're going to take questions. Chase, are you ready for questions?
Yes, I am. Got one coming in here.
Yes. So the first question is, does AlertFind integrate with Workday?
Yes, that was an easy one to start with. So we definitely integrate with Workday. We actually integrate with hundreds of other data sources as well. We have a library of free API connectors. So Workday is actually one we hear a lot, and it's easy for us to integrate with. And of course, with that integration, you get the smart contact feature that we talked about. And if you have any questions specific to the integration, it's something that our customer success team does constantly, is work with people on even custom integrations or tweaking the regular integrations to make sure that you're satisfied. So short answer, yes, we do.
Nice. And then the next question is, what do you do in monthly health checks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, at a bare minimum, the customer success person is going to start by making sure that you're satisfied. So the first thing that we're going to look to is what concerns do you have, and maybe right off the bat, it's getting the rest of the organization involved. It might be a whole host of things. We're going to start there, but we also have a number of things that we're going to look at, regardless of whether you're bringing them to our attention. And one of the most important ones is the health of your database, right? So even if you're not looking at what cell phone accuracy your company has, the customer success representative will be looking at that, and they'll actually be running reports on that before. We'll probably encourage you to do tests and actually make sure that over time that those metrics are actually getting better. So that's going to be a huge part of that. And then of course, any feature questions you have, you can bring to them, and they're going to be trying to make sure that you're getting the most out of the system. So they'll probably bring recommendations for how you can get more out of the system than you're getting today.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase. It looks like that is it for questions right now, but if any of you have questions that you weren't able to ask today or we didn't answer, you can just drop us a note. So you can reply to the email that we're going to send tomorrow with the recording of this broadcast and just ask your question then, or request a demo through our website or use the contact us form that's on the site, and we'll get any and all of your questions answered. So we hope that you enjoyed learning about setting up your ENS today. These strategies and real life examples should help you create an alerting library tailored to your organization's exact needs. Taking the time to build out your ENS will only make your overall emergency preparedness program stronger. When seconds count, you want to take advantage of a strong ENS to be able to reach all of your employees. If you'd like to learn more about AlertFind or the Smart Contact feature, please contact us to set up your own demo. Pretty easy, alertfind.com. There's a big request a demo button up in the upper right corner. Just hit that button and we can schedule you a demo tailored to your needs. You can also sign up for our drop-in demos. They're held bi-monthly. One of our solution experts just walks you through AlertFind's features and takes questions at the end of the presentation. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Chase, so much for sharing all those features.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone.